You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel. Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay then, one more time. Tali, not now! I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa! No, not that way! Come on! Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait! Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tali! Tali, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Tali, wait, no! There you go. I'm almost there. Okay. Oh! Tali, stop! No! That doesn't help. That does. Stop. Thank you. 할래니 nafshi yeshobeb yancheni במגלה צדק למען שמו.
What if there were a Bible movie that was as powerful as The Prince of Egypt and as fun as Tangled? That's about as likely to happen as David beating Goliath.
Oh, wait!
See what I did there? Well, it's happening. We are making an epic David and Goliath animated film. David will be an animated feature film that shows the power of the David story with the humor, music, and adventure of your favorite animated movie. With your investment, we can bring David to life with the production quality of a classic animated film while revealing God through one of the Bible's most powerful stories.
Did you see that? Anyone!
A group of filmmakers in South Africa called Sunrise Animation Studios has been carefully assembling the right team to make David. This David project has already generated $19 million in investments and inspired some of the world's leading animation film professionals to leave major Hollywood studios and be a part of this story. The Sunrise team includes senior contributors to movies like Moana, Monsters, Inc., Soul, and Big Hero 6. As well as Grammy Award-winning composers. Basically, David is the answer to the question, what if the best Bible stories were told by the world's best animators and musicians? Click the link to learn how to invest in David today. David tells the story of a young shepherd who gains fame as a musician and a warrior for the king.
I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine.
He shows the viewer what it truly means to be a man after God's own heart. David is the original underdog that has gone on to inspire the greatest underdog stories of all time. Don't believe me? Just re-watch Harry Potter and Star Wars. Instead of using magic or the Force to defeat giant villains, David uses the power of God to overcome a literal Goliath. And he reminds each of us that we're the underdog of our own stories. And through God, all things are possible. David's story has never been told on a cinematic level. And to accomplish that, you need a combination of a good budget and good storytellers. The faith community has the right storytellers, but most independent Bible films look like independent Bible films. But with your investments, combined with the storytelling prowess of Sunrise Animation Studios, we are finally telling David's story in a way that can be incredibly rewarding.
Hi there, my name is Phil Cunningham, and I was inspired by this character and thought if we could tell an animated feature film around the life of David, it would inspire people to take on the giants in their life and to live bigger, braver, bolder lives.
David has the chance to be the next big movie that every kid, parent, and Pixar fan will fall in love with. Click the link and invest today.
Look into my eyes. Do you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel. Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay then. One more time. Tali, not now! I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa! No, not that way! Come on! Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait! Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tali! Tali, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Whoa! Tali, wait, no! There you go. I'm almost through. Okay. Oh! Tali, stop! No! Oh! That doesn't help. That does. Stop! Thank you. Yena haleni nafshi yeshobeb yancheni b'mgalet tzedek leman shemo.
Welcome everyone to this very exciting live stream about David, an animated feature film. For those of you coming onto this for the first time and hearing the story for the first time, welcome. This is, we're talking about David, an animated feature film. Our passion, if I can quickly summarize it, is to make, in terms of quality, is to make a film that's got the beauty and authenticity of Prince of Egypt, and then the energy and fun and humor of Tangled. So we're really setting out to make this most incredible, beautiful masterpiece on David. And why David? David is just the most electric, exciting, adventurous character, so relatable. And the most beautiful thing about him, it says in Acts, I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. And I feel if we can tell an epic, authentic story about David, it's just going to open a window to our hearts, about the heart of God. Someone who's not a stuffy, boring headmaster kind of character, but a beautiful, energetic, passionate personality who's full of kindness and joy. I want to say that. And there's a lot of fun. That's the other thing I love about God, is how much fun he is. So that's why David. Why animation? Just very quickly, animation's got this incredible power to cross race, cultural, age, and gender barriers better than any other medium. And it's just such an exciting medium to bring the story to the world in. Quickly to tease the lineup tonight. So I'll get to what it's about, but my passion is story. Story is this most incredibly powerful vehicle for getting a message across, or just talking to people and entertaining people. Story has this Trojan horse effect where, for good or bad, it carries a message that can get under people's defense mechanisms and plant a seed. So, yeah, our passion is story. A big part of story is production design. The design of a movie, believe it or not, has a massive impact on the way you tell a story, the way it comes to life, and the way it's told. So production design is key. So tonight, or today in USA time, I'm really excited to welcome, and I'm not going to welcome them yet, I'm just teasing, we're going to welcome them shortly, is the production designer who's worked on David to this point, John Burton, who's from the USA, and then the Sunrise art director, Linton Levengood, who's also an amazing creative. And the two of them just make the most phenomenal team. We're also going to be talking about authenticity, and why authenticity is such a critical part of telling a story, and it seeps out of the movie and out of the story. So that's the main thing we're going to be tackling tonight, is that. And it's just a lot of fun. We're going to be showing beautiful footage from Israel, and it's just going to be a great time together. The other thing, very briefly, I'm going to outline before we get into that just now is the pledges. The investment perks. So each amount a person invests, what perk they get. And we really feel we've come up with the most amazing set of perks for the investment. We'll go there soon, but before I go there, just to say there's a technical problem on the site at the moment. If you do want to support the David movie, you can go to angel.com/David. Right now, believe it or not, there's a technical problem. So maybe just bank that in your mind, and we can put it up on screen just so you can see it, angel.com/David. And if you do go there, right now you won't actually be able to complete your investment, but please just bank that URL, and then you can go later and invest if you'd like to support this project. So maybe I'm just going to start off with the perks. Like, if you do invest in this movie, what are some of the perks that you get? And this is just a bit of fun, to be honest, but we'll just run through them super quickly because I want to get onto the main part of this live stream. So the first perk, if you invest $100 or more, you get regular newsletter updates. And by the way, once you've invested $100, you're part of the team as much as anyone else, and we're on a journey together. You're part of the family, part of the David family, part of helping create this beautiful masterpiece. And then the next investment level with a perk, if you go to $250 or more, you get a streaming credit roll mention. In other words, if this movie is streamed, you'll be on a credit roll mention in the movie. And then if you go to $500, that's where you'll get a full credit roll mention when the movie is shown in cinema. So that's the extra perk of going to $500 or more. And I'll just keep reminding us that every time we go up a perk level, you do get all the previous perks as part of your perk package, if I can call it that. Then the next perk level is at $1,000. And there you'll be getting quarterly video updates from us as directors and producers, just a bit more color and a bit more video footage. So you really get behind the scenes and see what's happening in the kitchen. And that's the idea of this perk. It's just to bring you a little bit closer to the behind the scenes and into the kitchen. And then the next perk is at $2,000 or more, and that's where you're going to get a director's cut of the trailer. So that's got a nice exclusive element to it. And then we'll go to the next perk. So at $5,000 or more, you get a signed film poster by the directors. And we obviously, when we get to marketing the movie, there's going to be a variety of posters, but you'll get a personally signed poster delivered to you for $5,000 or more. And then we're going to go to the next level, which is $10,000. And I think this is a very special one. You're going to get a signed version of the final production-ready script. And I think this is such a great thing to have that's connected to the project, because that's what it's all about, is story. And to have the final script signed by the directors, I think will be a very special perk, actually, to keep in your house and on your coffee table. And then if we go up to the next perk, we're going to create, and we'll talk a bit with John and Linton later, because they would be critical to this book. And this is a behind-the-scenes book. We've already got, by the way, there's been $19 million invested in this movie already. And there's up to 800 beautiful digital pieces of artwork. And one is in the background of this actual live stream at the moment. So this book is going to get behind the scenes, all the beautiful artwork, the work in progress that many people will never see, but it's done by some of the world's best concept artists. So I think this book is going to be a treasure and just a great little perk to put on a coffee table. And then if we go up to the next perk, at $50,000 or more, we're going to print out a beautiful selected and limited edition canvas. So it'll be beautifully printed out, something you could hang in your house. And just to re-clarify, this perk, if you get to $50,000 more, you get all the other perks as well, the credits on the etc., everything leading up to this. And then we'll go to the next perk. At $100,000 or more, I think this is something very special and very rare in the film industry. You'd get an associate producer credit, and that kind of credit is actually really hard to come by. But someone who's investing as much as $100,000 is a really significant contribution to boosting this film into its existence. So we really felt we'd like to reward people who go that far with that perk. And then the next perk, if it's $300,000 or more, it's an executive producer credit, which, EP credits are really hard to come by and get onto IMDb. And again, $300,000 is a massive investment, and we'd really like to reward those people with just acknowledging that with their money, we managed to get this film made. So they'd get an EP credit. And then the last one is $500,000 or more, which will be an invitation to the world premiere, which I believe it's going to be an epic event. Wherever we do it, we're going to make it huge. We're going to make it special. And it's going to be only a select group of people who can get to the premiere. But anyone who invests $500,000 or more will definitely be on that list. So that's our perks. the one other thing I wanted to say, and I should have said at the beginning, if you've got questions, we love questions, because please just pop them in the live stream, and the guys who are curating the session will put them on the screen towards the end. So if you do have questions, feel free just to pop them up there, and we'll do our best to answer them as best we can. So I'm about to introduce Linton and John, but before I go there, I just want to say one thing about introducing them, that everything we do about this movie, we want it to be authentic. We want it to be steeped in research. We have done four trips as a group to Israel. And the whole point of those trips is to really soak ourselves up in the environment, the culture, the landscape, the geography. So we're going to invite Linton and John onto screen. Before I do that, just a quick reminder: if you want to support this movie, you can go. You can support. You can actually be a shareholder. You can go to angel.com/David. There is a technical issue with the site right now, which is unfortunate, but that's life. So in the meantime, just make a note of that site, and then later on you can go and invest and become a shareholder in the movie if you'd like to. So without further ado, I would really like to invite our very special guest, John Burton, who's an incredible artist, and Linton Levengood, a Sunrise art director, onto the live stream with me. Linton and John, welcome. It's so great to see you guys and have you on screen with me again.
Great to be here.
So good to be here.
And
thank you.
And John, I believe where you are in the US, you were telling me it's just started snowing this morning, which not
just
happening in
started
Africa.
snowing.
Which is
yeah,
incredible.
how warm is it there? In the comparison, it's summer there. So, how is it in South Africa?
Well, we measure in degrees Celsius, so we're probably like 20 to 25 degrees Celsius because it's evening now. But
Right.
yeah, there's certainly no snow on the mountains around us, John. And you know the mountains here; they're beautiful, but there's no snow.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, it's great to be here with you, Phil.
Thank you, John. I'm going to kick off with a question for you, and just to say, for those of you joining this, go and Google John Burton. He's an incredible artist. He works in the movie industry, but he's also an incredible artist in his own right. So after this, please go look him up on, I don't know, John, I presume you've got an incredible Instagram account, but I know you're a world famous artist. I'd really encourage people to go look at your Instagram account afterwards.
Yeah, Instagram, John Burton Art, if you want to look me up on Instagram.
John Burton Art. Please, guys, go look at it. He's one of the world's best creatives, and I'm not saying that glibly. But John, as a production and designer, can you just give me your perspective on why authenticity is so important to you when you're going through the design process, and why trips to Israel or real life trips are actually critical to authenticity? So that's two questions, but you can kind of merge them, and over to you to answer that for us.
Yeah, so I think with that one example, I give this example a lot when I give a workshop or something, is if you wanted to write a book about Venice, and you could get on the internet, you'd find wonderful pictures of Venice, and you could see what it looks like at sunset, sunrise, winter, summer, but you don't know what the food tastes like. You don't know what it smells like. You don't know how the air feels. You don't know what it sounds like completely. So you have a very limited understanding of what Venice looks like. For instance, I was talking to a person who does a lot of negotiations once, and he said he hated negotiations on Zoom because you're only getting a very small percentage of body language. And it's very similar to if you don't go to the location. So when we go to Israel, I had never had a shawarma before, which Linton brought me there the first day, which I still dream about the shawarmas in Israel. The food was, it's the best food actually. Every time I talk to anyone who's from Israel, has family from Israel, I think it's actually the best food on the planet. Like, I didn't know what the food was like. I didn't know, I had such a limited scope. And we talked about it last time we all got together, was I didn't know the green. I didn't know that one section could be so green and you could travel such a short distance to what we're going to discuss today, which is an area that you couldn't live in. Like, you go in a very short distance and it's not survivable, and you go to another area and it's just lush and beautiful. So yes, I think there's a few things I would say. Authenticity would be the top, is you can't give an authentic opinion if you don't go there and you don't go on location. And I'm incredibly grateful to Sunrise that they did invest in that time to bring us there. But I would have, my opinion would be the internet's opinion of Israel. Instead, my opinion is my opinion, firsthand, not secondhand opinion of everything about Israel. And what you'll see in some of the videos that we'll show today is the life and the lack of life, and having that, like I talked, not only distance, but even a canyon we'll see today, where there's life at the bottom of the canyon and no life above. So number one, authenticity, because then we bring that, but then just a fuller understanding. That's the second, is my understanding of Israel is so much greater. And I would even take a step further. My understanding of Scripture is so much greater because of words in Scripture that they didn't understand. You know, if you didn't live where snow was and someone kept talking about snow in the Scripture, you'd be like, I think I know what that is. So I hope that answers your question, Phil.
No, absolutely, John. And I was just blown away watching you do some of your painting live there, because the other thing which you can talk to much better than myself later is the incredible influence of light on art and production design. But you're never going to get that off the internet. And watching you there, early morning light, late evening light, you know, midday light, it's all so different. You can't absorb that if you don't physically go there.
Yeah, if I could, could I piggyback on that
please.
real quick since you mentioned it?
Yeah.
So Linton and I, not only we did a ton of photography, but Linton and I painted on location. And I find people work only off photos or off the internet. That is reduced information. The world is made up of light and matter, and form and atmosphere. And your photograph is just taking all that information and limiting it. So besides everything else I talked about, for Linton and I to go be on the rooftop of a building in Jerusalem and be painting at sunset or early morning in one of these canyons and painting and seeing what the light changes, it's going to give us far more information. There's a artist I love, and his name is Jerome, and he was an Orientalist from France, which he would go to the Middle East and paint. And he always said, I would rather have 5 minutes with a paintbrush than 3 days with a camera. And he lived 100 years ago. And he said that's how important it was for him to have a full understanding. Because when you do sit and paint on location like Linton and I did, you get out of our speed, you get out of our time. We're always in a rush moving around, and you sit and you hear noises you wouldn't hear. You'll hear birds or water that you're just not paying attention to because you're trying to get to your destination. Or certain insects, or an animal may walk by that you were walking and scaring, but now you're part of nature. And then just a far better understanding of light. So that's
amazing. It was absolutely amazing watching you guys paint live. It blew me away. Just so exciting. Linton, so do you want to tee us up which locations we're going to look at tonight? Do you want to show the video now, or do you want to quickly just talk about the two locations you and John are going to focus on specifically? How would you like to tee that up?
Yeah, I'll tee up the video just quickly. So what you're going to see is you'll see us starting off in a tunnel. And I just want to say that, like John mentioned, how close everything is together. So we started off in Jerusalem. Last time we were on the video together, we looked at the Valley of Elah, which is one of the most green, lush, flower-filled areas of Israel. And, 20 minutes in the opposite direction in Jerusalem, you go through this tunnel and then you emerge and suddenly you're in the desert. And it's absolutely unbelievable how close together those environments sit. And so you'll see us going into an area that's called the Judean Wilderness. And the first area that we're going to focus on is called Wadi Kalt, which is the ancient road to Jericho. It's like a canyon with a river in it. And then after that, we're going to go to Wadi Uragot, which is the area of En-Gedi where David hid from Saul and cut the corner off his robe while hiding in a cave. And the last area that we're going to is in the Kana Valley, where we rode some camels and had some fun there. Yeah.
Thank you. So before we show the video, just to say, if you want to support the movie, go to angel.com/David. And at the moment, we've got technical issues. So if you do try and invest now, unfortunately, it won't happen. But if you could go back in a few hours' time and try again, that would be amazing. It should be up and running by then. So, watch the video, and Linton will pick up with you and John on the other side.
Great.
now. Made it safe. Very grateful. To be grateful.
Mentioning that he pictures the Israelite, David's men going down here and Saul's men going along the top, going along with, you know, when you're with God, look how much life is down here at the bottom. And if they're going up there and they're not that way, there'll be less life. We can still keep playing with that idea.
And also the motivation is David and them and his men are running deliberately in the water and up the river to avoid leaving footprints to be followed.
Yeah, Linton and John, I just love watching the way you put together production art and real footage. It really makes so much sense and it's so incredible. The one thing before I go back to you guys, I just want to say we'll come back to story, but as a general story comment, I just wanted to say for those watching that it's just incredible how environment speaks to story. And David's, at this moment in his life, which Linton and John are going to speak about these locations, was where David was running for his life, and he was in a desperate situation. From when he had fought Goliath, and he said, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin. I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts." And now we know he actually took the very sword that he's scorned, and he's running with it through the desert. Obviously, a very challenging time, and the environment is reflecting that moment in the story, which I just think so amazing. But we'll talk more about that. I mean, Linton, the one thing watching that video, John was talking about the food in Israel, how incredible it is, and how, John, the other thing, how diverse the food in Israel is. But Linton, now that we've watched the video, just talk a little bit more. It's incredible in such a small country, the change in topography and vegetation. And yeah, to talk us through that change as you got to Jerusalem and where we arrived. And then we'll go back to John with a few questions.
Yeah, sure. So we briefly touched on it before, but there's Israel is such a small country. You know, we have a game reserve, a national park in South Africa, Kruger National Park, and Israel is a little smaller than the Kruger National Park. But in this small country, there's so much diversity of landscape and climate. It's absolutely unbelievable. So there's a mountain range that runs up straight up the center of the country, and Jerusalem sits almost at the top of that ridge. And then it slopes down on the one side all the way down to the Mediterranean, and then the other side of the mountain slopes all the way down to the Dead Sea, and that's the lowest place on land that you can go. So yeah, all the rain comes off from the Mediterranean side and washes onto that side, and then you get this beautiful green climate on that side, lots of shrubs and trees, and it's very fertile. And then you go through a tunnel and you end up in this incredible desert landscape that is, it's absolutely amazing. It's shaped by goats. That's where they herd all the goats, and you see the Bedouin people herding goats through that landscape. And on the footage, next time we have a look at that drone footage of the Wadi Kalt area, pay close attention to all of the lines that are on the hills, and that is thousands upon thousands of years of goats walking on the landscape have made these little trails. And that was one of the most striking things that you notice when you go there. I've never seen anything like that before. And yeah, so that's the desert climate of Israel. It's absolutely incredible.
And John, when you stepped into those days in Engedi and in Wadi Kalt, we know that was David's moment where he was in desperation and running. Just talk me through how you felt, just the atmosphere, the vistas. Like, how did you feel walking through there? I mean, just talk me through your experience as an artist.
You know what? For one, I would recommend anyone paying for Linton's ticket, and if they walk through any of these areas, go with Linton. Because Linton's imagination was constant. Like, we were never walking in our time period. Linton was always walking in their time period, and he'd always be talking about that. He'd always be like, yeah, look here, and this is how you would do it, and this is how you'd walk through here, and this is what's happening. And so he would constantly, if my mind ever just wandered at the beauty, which it would, like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Even though it's lifeless, it had an incredible beauty and massive scale. But Linton would keep bringing, he talked story the whole time we were there. And that was not his first trip. So he'd really been able to digest it. So it affected me. But if I could add one other thing that's amazing, when I watched the footage, we were in Israel right before it closed. You see, we're not masked, or I know we're outdoors, but it is pretty incredible. We flew out of Jerusalem, or Tel Aviv. We're into Tel Aviv, I guess we flew out of. We flew out of Tel Aviv the day Israel closed its doors at the very beginning of COVID. And so you talk about, I know this is a side note, but you talk about the last tango in Paris. I look back at that trip amazed at down to the wire. COVID was out, but it wasn't worldwide. That what we were able to experience, the blessing, which I can only say was from above, was to get creative director and production designer and much of the team there before it made it very difficult to travel.
Can I bounce off of that quickly just to add something?
Go
when we were in Israel, when we were traveling down into the desert area, we passed nearby Jericho, and we had just heard the news that Jericho was locked down. So if we had visited Jericho that day, we would have been stuck in Israel. But just to add how John was mentioning how I see story and all that as we're walking through, but I just got to add, it's so easy when you're in Israel, because it's amazing to me how poetic the landscape is, and how much it lines up with David's story. we're just trying to do our best to follow the lay of the land as he fled from Saul, and we tried to visit the locations that were relevant to David's story. But it was like such a gift because, at the beginning of the story, David is happy and he's, enjoying his life. And, as a young, safe shepherd boy, he's in this green, lush landscape. And, it helps tell the story of how comforting and safe he is. But when he's running away from Saul, he runs into the desert landscape, and like all of that safety and comfort is stripped away from him. And it's not something that we're imposing on the story. We're not just, using landscape as we see fit. We're trying to use the places that are mentioned in the Bible, and they line up so perfectly with the story to give it an emotional beat. It's very poetic, and you'll see in Engedi where David formed a stronghold where he hid from Saul. There's water gushing out of the cliff face there. And something that was so special about that is that our guide told us that Israel is mostly limestone, and it's very porous, but there's a shelf of hard limestone that runs through the whole country. And the water that's gushing out in Engedi is rain that fell in Jerusalem like 20 years ago. It takes 20 years to filter through all that limestone. So it struck me so special that David is hiding in this place, and Jerusalem is so special to him. And like the blessings that fell on Jerusalem were literally gushing out and sustaining him at his lowest point in Engedi. I thought that was very poetic and beautiful.
That is super poetic. That's
can I one thing, John, which I'm for those who aren't movie, don't make movies. Linton said a word that you might not be familiar with, which is story beat. So in the art side of a film or the visual side of a film, if you think about when you go see a film, sometimes you should be able to turn the volume off and know how you're feeling. So you're watching a Tangled or you're watching a Moana, and you're feeling uncomfortable or you're feeling happy or feeling joy. That's because of the visuals that are being developed in the film, because we want to have it all encompassing. It's not just the dialogue, it's also the sound and the visuals, which are going to give you that. And so when Linton said story beat, what was so interesting about our traveling was it was naturally setting up the story beats. And it was fascinating to see that. We were following scripture, we were following his story, and it fit perfectly as he was close or as he was distant, and questioning and wondering, and even what Linton had mentioned about the water, this life-sustaining force in this incredibly deadly place. He's being chased by the Philistines and Saul, and he's in trouble, and there's still this life-sustaining force. So yeah, I'll let you go, Phil, but that's just to share what drafting off what Linton said.
No, that's awesome. The other thing that struck me as we went into that valley was just, so if you talk about Lawrence of Arabia and the way that movie was framed, the scale of it, and we talked about, for some reason, when you go into the desert, the depth of field you get, and I think it's those goat paths and all the hills stacked up against each other, you get this incredible sense of vista and scale. And the thing that struck me about the desert was, one, it's a harsh place, and actually you could see where David was in his story at the moment, but two, you feel very small when you're out there, but also in quite a cool way. You feel small, but you feel small and part of a massive vista. And before we go to videos, I don't know if you guys, I think it was we were discussing with you guys, that sense of vista and scale you get out in the desert is just incredible. It makes you feel this big. And in a way, that's also a good thing, because you realize actually you are only that big,
Exactly. Yeah. That is right on. I agree.
So, Linton, I don't know if you want to dive, and you and John want to talk through. I know you've prepared a few other visuals. Do you want to go to those now and just talk through them as they roll, you and John? Should we go there next?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So over to you, Linton and John, to talk as we go through these.
So John will remember this is in Wadi Kilt, and this is unusually green at this time of year. They had an unusual rainfall. It's usually much drier than this, but yeah, you can see the goats who shape the landscape. These are the Shami goats, I think they're called. And they, as we're zooming over the landscape here, you can see the thousands upon thousands of little lines that are all over the hill surface. And that was very striking to see. And John, you remember how we went down into the valley there and we were doing some painting and on the river and stuff. Here's one of your paintings.
Yeah, trying to capture the feeling and the life. And here you can actually see that there is life here at the bottom. There's water and there's trees. And look how lifeless up top. I mean, it's incredible, the contrast. Oh, there's what you were talking about, Linton.
Yes.
With the goat
trails. It's great. And this is one of your love letter paintings.
Yeah, and I'll talk about maybe the love letters after this, because I don't want to talk too long while we're looking at visuals, but I'd be happy to share a little about the love letters.
Well, go ahead, because it's just going to play the visuals. So.
Okay. So I might have mentioned this for anyone who had seen before when we talked about Valley of Elah, is my standard for beauty, being a landscape painter, being a production designer, is very high where I've lived, where I've traveled. And if I think about one of the most beautiful places on earth, a lot of times Hawaii comes to mind. And when I came back, first of all, from my trip, and we were in the studio in South Africa, I told everyone, I said, oh my gosh, I'll tell you, I feel bad for Moana. They only had to work with Hawaii. Because the diversity and the beauty in Israel was amazing. And I know this right here, the desert midday is pretty flat. Desert sunrise, sunset is incredible. But even this, there's a beauty to it. But I will also add that when I called a couple, as we started to assemble our team, I called a couple of our concept artists who would be mainly focusing on landscape with me. And when I called them to pitch them the film, to get them to come work with us, it was an interesting phone call, because I didn't call them and say, hey, there's this film I want you to work on. I called them instead, and they're good friends of me from working together for a long time. And I said, I need some help. And they said, yeah, John, what do you need help with? And I said, I need help writing a love letter. And they were like, what? Yeah, sure. And it was such a great, and I just let it pause there after I called them, let that sit for a minute, like, how can I help? And they said, I need to write a love letter to Israel. I've just returned. I told them the pitch of the film, and I said, it is so beautiful. And in this film, the environment, the landscape and the environment is going to represent God. It's actually a character in our film. And that's such an incredibly tall order and a difficult order. So I assembled the best of the best in that area and said, let's not treat it like landscape. Let's treat it like a love letter. We love the world. We love this love for Israel. Can we translate that into the film?
Yeah, that was incredible, John. And I could just see the passion from the whole team that you managed to inspire with that kind of thought pattern and leadership was just incredible. We're only seeing a glimpse of some of the artwork. We've got over 800 pieces. Linton, sorry, you carry on to talk about these specific locations, though, or whatever, where you were going to go.
All right, I was just going to say, if we want to go on to the next video, it's the Engedi area. So, just to brush through this is in a valley called Wadi Uragot, which is in Engedi. And here you can see the two levels, the canyon at the bottom, which has the water, and then there was like a higher level that you could walk along. And there's John and Eric walking through, and there was just so many discussions happening. Like, as you're walking through these places, you can't help but imagine David walking through the same and imagining how he would walk through this landscape and navigate through this landscape, and what it was like to try and run away from Saul in this place, And I felt that being in these places really helps the story come to life in a way that you would never be able to achieve unless you've been there.
Yeah, what struck me about Engedi was, there's John, the explorer.
Well,
what I was going to say is,
it's a little bit of acting by all of us because we wanted to say, okay, let's get a little bit of video. And I'm not an animator, I'm not an actor, but what does it look like to drink this water or walk through? So that's the water Linton was talking about. 20 years ago, that's from Jerusalem coming down to feed this stream, and perfectly clean and healthy to drink because it's been so filtered. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it's absolutely one of the most unique things I've ever seen.
Now, what I found so incredible about Engedi was the contrast. You've got the incredibly harsh desert, and then you've got this beautiful, fresh water just flowing through the desert. It's just incredible. And the other thing, which you don't quite see on these videos, but in the cliffs, because they have limestone, there's an incredible network of caves. There's the two artists that are hard at work. So there's these incredible caves, and you just see these black goats suddenly stick their head out. And you can see, there's a question there, Linton, from one of our viewers. Was the water sweet? Out of interest, there's a question.
The water tastes very nice. Yeah, I can't remember if it was sweet or not, but it was very good water.
It felt, for me, that water felt incredibly clear and just, I would say, sweet. It was just beautiful. Yeah, it was amazing. But you could see the labyrinth of caves and why it was such a good place for David to hide out, because from a story point of view, there was water, but there were caves, and it was isolated, so it was hard for people to track him down there. So it was a very interesting place for him to try and elude Saul and to hang out. Yeah, it was very interesting. Yeah.
And
those
also like
are incredible.
I could mention some of the artists you're seeing. You're seeing some David Dibble here. I saw some Vance Kovacs. If you want to look up these artists, I mean, Vance is incredible. He's worked everywhere. He's worked on major Disney films like Lion King and Jungle Book. He's worked on the Marvel franchise. I mean, the names and the people that worked on this film are absolutely amazing. David Dibble, Blue Sky. If you're familiar with his Ice Age and what are the most recent ones for them? Ice Age Epic, films like that. The team, Eric here, right there in this shot, is from Pixar. So one thing to mention, when I saw in the opening video, it talks about these people. This artist is from DreamWorks. It truly is the cast and the experience. There's a Vance Kovacs. The experience of these artists. These are incredible artists that I actually learn from every single day. Every day we would have a meeting. We had our meetings on Thursday. Linton remembers. All of us felt like it was Christmas. The artist Mike Sparber, I don't see a piece of his in here, to still talk about how those meetings were, because we just couldn't believe the level of art that we got to see every week and the level of talent. Armand Serrano, Disney forever. Goes back to, I think his first Disney film was Milan. So and he was art director. The skill level of this group of artists is just amazing.
Yeah, John, it was incredible, the group that you guys managed to put together. For those of you watching, if you want to support the movie, I haven't mentioned this for a while, you can go to angel.com/David. We've got a slight technical problem at the moment, which will hopefully soon be resolved. But if you'd like to support it and even invest and be a shareholder, that's where you can go, angel.com/David. Linton, shall we go to the next video? There's one more to come, am I correct? Or was this the last video for now?
Yes. Yeah,
so
the last one is... Yeah, this was filmed in a place called Kfar Hanakdom in the Kana Valley. It's a place where you can go and stay and experience Bedouin hospitality. And we felt it was really important to experience this because this way of life was so prevalent in David's time, the nomadic lifestyle. And it's been part of the fabric of that region for thousands of years. So anything that we could glean from what it's like to live in the desert, to live in tents, to have to travel in that heat was absolutely invaluable. And of course, camels. Like they're such incredible animals, such incredible characters. All of these camels here are female camels. I'm not sure why, but they told us they were all female. And it's definitely much more comfortable to ride on the front than the back. I can say that much.
Yes, that's a great thing to talk about. Can I share, Linton, the discussion on
Go
our
for it,
camel?
yeah.
So, first of
Yeah,
all,
sure.
what a bucket list item. I remember when we were traveling, and I saw one of the things we will be doing is we're going to stay a night with the Bedouin, and we're going to travel by camel and stay with the Bedouin. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Bedouin are the nomadic ranchers, for lack of a better word, of this region of the world. Goat herders, sheep herders, and really no boundaries. They may have a tent, but live out in the good and the harsh conditions. And we were able to go out there, and Linton and I shared a camel. And I was lucky enough to be in the front, and Linton was unlucky enough to be in the back. And Linton is making noises constantly. And he's like, oh, ah. And I'm enjoying the scenery, loving the view, talking to everyone, around us. And finally I tell Linton, what's wrong? And he said, I can't do your accent. I wish I could. But in Linton's great South African accent, by the way, with Linton, I always think of his accent sounding like an explorer, like a British explorer in Africa is what I think of when we were traveling Israel. And he's like, and he says to me, John, let me tell you about my anatomy and the camel's anatomy. And you are on the downside hump, and I am on the upside hump. I tell you, maybe it's not as funny in the retelling, but out there after hearing him feel the pain, I was just tearing. These are great, and we have a million great memories of this. And going back to my first comment about, if you write a novel about Venice and you don't go there, our understanding, even mounting a camel, a camel, you don't jump on it like a horse. It sits down onto its knees and you climb on very easy, and then it stands up. But standing up is not easy. If you're not holding on prepared, it is like a 90-degree angle, especially on the front, and you're just going to fly right off. So those experiences then we can bring into the film. Not only, we talked earlier about like drinking the water in those canyons, seeing that. There's no way in production design we would have created artwork that you saw earlier that had water coming out of the sides of that canyon. I don't think I would have grasped over the internet looking at photos. I would have said, oh, they must have shot this during a rainstorm. But no, that's a consistent thing, summer or winter, or how a camel works, or that where has life and where doesn't have life. Those experiences, you need that 360-degree, 5 senses opportunity to bring that to life in the film.
Yeah, John, thanks for bringing it back.
Such an amazing thing. Yeah, to explore, to experience the warmth of Bedouin hospitality as well. There's such a difference in culture all over the world, but just to see how welcoming the Bedouin are. When you arrive there, they give you coffee, and it's just, they tell you the story of their people and stuff, and it was just really incredible to experience that and to experience a different culture, because it's definitely going to add to the exoticness of the film. That way of living is definitely going to enhance things.
To add to that, Linton, just a small note, but I'm talking about things kind of give you guys a feel of what it was like traveling and these experiences, because these are the things we internalize to bring into the film. Not this specific incident, but just things that you see. The Bedouin. One night we were with the Bedouin in the tents, and it was one person in our group's birthday who had traveled from South Africa. And if you remember, Linton, I had gone up and I had said, hey, it's his birthday. Can we sing happy birthday or do something? And they were like, no. The Bedouin are far too shy, far too quiet. Maybe that's a better word. Far too quiet or reserved of a people. That isn't in their culture. They're not going to, and just to understand that and say, oh, great. Okay. That's something fantastic. I didn't know.
Deborah says, thank you so much for this perspective. May have to add it to my bucket list. But Deborah, if you do add it to your bucket list, take the hint and write on the front of the camera.
Yes, exactly. Add it to your bucket list, but be on the front. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good,
Maybe
Phil.
we'll switch back. We can stop the video. I just want to see, I've got a few questions that have come through, but just to the guys who are curating it, Have you got any questions that have come through that you'd like us to attempt to answer? And while they're looking at the questions, John, I just want to say thanks for bringing it back to the authenticness, because I love your thing. If you want to write a novel about Venice, like, you can read about Venice, but if you actually want to write a novel with the story feels authentic, you've got to go there.
Absolutely.
And I remember what inspired me about this a long time ago was one of the guys was talking about, here comes a question. Is this for profit or not for profit? And also, what is the budget? So that's a great question. So the budget, just to give you an idea on budget, I'll start with that question. The budget of Disney films of this scale are between $150 to $200 million. The budget of this film is about $54 million, of which $19 million has already been spent. And this is in the $5 million phase now, which will leave about another 35 still to raise. Sorry, about another 30 still to raise. So it's significant budgets. And the reason we want to get that budget together is we really want to do it properly, and not do it on the cheap. Because my passion over the last 20 years, I've been building, crawl, walk, run. We've been building the team, the technology. We've done projects like Jungle Beat the movie, which has been out on Netflix, all part of our journey to get to this point. So to answer your question, that's the budget. It's significant, but it's exciting. And yes, this is absolutely a for-profit entity, and that's why people have got the opportunity to invest in the company that owns the David property. So it's angel.com/David. The goal and the passion behind it, though, is if this company makes profit, is to go on and make more projects. And I actually won't tell you exactly what they are, but there's some dreams to make more projects. And one of my dreams, just to say it again, is to make a David Broadway musical. I've said this on a few live streams, but the Lion King, the Disney Broadway musical, has earned $8 billion for Disney. It's the single biggest earner that Disney's ever had. So one of our dreams is to get this film funded, to make money, and then take that and do other things like David Broadway musical and other epic biblical animations, just to answer that question. But it's a great question. Here's another.
Can I say two things, Phil, on that? Can I just mention two things?
Please do, and please don't take away this question. We'll come to this question after John's spoken.
Just because of the South African accent, I wanted to make sure I repeated, if you're from America who asked the question. 19 million has been raised and invested and spent. So that's where we are right now. Because he brushed over that fairly quickly, but you think about that type of investment and how much is already in this film. I can't remember the number of, you're seeing a small percentage. The number of paintings or images like the ones you've seen here is in the 500,000, I don't know the exact number. The character design is complete. The 3D models have been built of the character design. I just think that's really important to say. Like, you're seeing such a small amount of the amount of hours everyone has put in to bring us to this point. And then one other thing I just wanted to share, and then I'll get back. I know it's saying about the music. Because we don't ever hear the music, at least in these talks, I have heard the music, and it's completely amazing. And that's not a giant dream of Phil, or a distant dream that's not attainable. That is a definitely attainable dream, because the music is so good. So I'll let you answer this question, Phil.
Thanks, John, but very good points. And my South African accent, I'm glad you picked that up. So it's $19 million. And some of the things you lined up there, for example, we've also, on our fourth draft of the script, we've done our second animatic. So there's so much. If I could talk about a building site, it's the foundation has been laid, and now we can start building. But I'll jump to this question on the music, which is a great question. Would you consider releasing the music soundtrack early, before the movie is finished? So to answer that question, the music writing has been so prolific and so awesome. We've actually already got 20 songs, and we've probably only got room in the movie for 6 songs. Maybe we'll see how it goes, but we can't squeeze all 20 into the movie. So what is in our mind is to actually definitely do a release of songs that are inspired by the movie, bring that out before the film even, and then we save the ones that are integrated into the storytelling for the film. But we have got such a treasure chest of music developed for this movie. It's just so exciting. Yeah. So that's a great question.
One more thing to the music is, I don't have the music. I don't have access to it, right? It's not my department, so I don't get to listen to it all the time. But at a screening or the opportunities we get to listen to it, I listen to it like 6-7 times in a row just to hear the music. It's that good. So yeah, Jonas did just an amazing job.
Yeah, we had Jonas last week on live stream, and just to quickly say, for those of you talking about music, you know, Jonas has written for an incredibly diverse group of people: Andre Bocelli, Celine Dion, Barbara Streisand, and like some young pop bands. And so there's incredible diversity in the music. So if you want to back the project, you can go to angel.com/David. We have got some technical issues, just so you know, so please be patient if you go, and maybe just try again in a couple of hours' time. There was another question that came up about non-residents. I don't know if you want to pull that up again, and I can answer that. So thanks, Ryan. Can non-residents fund or pay it forward for this project? So just to say, in this phase we're in right now, which is the $5 million phase, it is linked only to US residents at the moment. But what we are doing is working on a way to open it up, because there's still the $30 million fundraise that's got to follow this. And we're looking for ways to open that up, because we'd love to involve non-US residents in that phase. So if you can keep watching our Facebook, our Instagram, our angel.com/David feed, we will be communicating about that. And a way to invest and a way to donate, if you prefer. So that will come hopefully next year, Ryan. And if you could just keep an eye out on our comms for that, because I really would like to involve building a crowd worldwide, not just in the US. But at the moment, that's our technical restriction, just to answer that question. So we're going to go to our last question from Tim. How can we specifically be praying for this project? That is such an awesome question, which John and Linton, I'd love to answer, and then you guys can chime in. So someone actually asked me this question today, funny enough, Tim. And the one thing I want to say is, when you look at wealth, I think of the rainbow. And money is only one little part, and probably the least of wealth. What people can be praying for is creativity. And if I can use the word anointing, because when David went to fight Goliath, he was anointed. He had that God's anointing on him and God's spirit with him. And I think to pray specifically, the word I would use is anointing on the artists. And by the way, when I saw John and Linton painting an example, because on the live stream tonight, I could sense God's anointing on them when we were in Israel. The work that came out of there was just, I can only say it was anointed. And it was so special. It came from somewhere else. And so if people are praying, I would pray for that rainbow of wealth. And I don't mean money. I mean rainbow of wealth. When creativity in music, creativity in story, creativity in production design. And that's such an amazing question, Tim. Thank you. It's one that's not normally asked. And I just want to say, I think that's where the power is in anointing. And John and Linton, I don't know if you want to add anything to that question at all.
After you, Linton.
I'll just say, pray that we make a film that glorifies God. That's the most important thing. So, yeah, we all have our hopes and dreams and passions that we're bringing to this film. But what matters is that we make a film that glorifies God. So, yeah, pray for that as well.
And John?
Hard to follow both of those. But what came to mind with that question is, and I mentioned this last time, I haven't mentioned it here, and I should, the family atmosphere, the inclusiveness and wanting to share the success with everyone on the team, and having just a incredibly laser focused vision that Phil and everyone has at Sunrise on a project that is so important in this time period, in a time period where we don't get to choose what we're fed over media right now. We are getting fed quite a bit of stuff that you probably don't want to be fed. And to have an opportunity to have this in the world that you want to bring your family to, that maybe can bring people light in their world, the attractiveness of that, the reason I bring that, attracted people from the best studios in the world to go work for the South African studio, Sunrise. It was unbelievable. When Phil talks about me bringing this team together, it wasn't me. It was impossible. I would call somebody and they would, on the phone, I would there's no possible way I'm going to get this person. And then they wouldn't answer the phone in one case. And they called me back in 10 minutes and they said, I can't believe your timing. Marvel just dropped my film. And you called exactly when I was on the phone with Marvel. It was like experience after experience like that. So I know whose hands this film is in. And it's far above Phil, and Phil knows that too, whose hands it is in. So I guess what I would pray for is there is a budget that does need to happen. Phil and Linton didn't say that, but there is something you need. David didn't need a shield, and I'm drafting off Phil's wonderful wife, who one day in the film said to the whole team, to the whole studio, remember, David didn't need the shield, and he didn't need the armor, he didn't need the spear, he didn't need that. We don't need what the world needs. But he did need a slingshot, he did need a rock, so we do need something. So every donation does help. So I would pray for that there is a certain budget we need, and then that this can be used. I know who's in charge of it, that it can be used for a light on this world. So pray for that it can touch the right people.
Yeah, John, that's so special. That was such a great question, actually, Tim. The other thing I want to say, just to finish off on the question, is going back to the beginning of what I was saying on this live stream, and the heart behind this movie, to answer Tim's question, is that verse from Acts where it says, I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. And my prayer is that people watch this film, that they are inspired, and it opens their minds and hearts to a glimpse of God's incredible heart. That it's just a film that breaks open that door and just sheds light on God's beautiful, amazing character. And that's my prayer for this film, that it would touch people around the world in that way. But John and Linton, we're going to end off by just showing the demo one more time and the thing. I just really want to thank you guys, because you are, if I can call you gladiators, Spartans. John took a huge risk, and then a lot of people followed him because he took a risk. And John, we're forever grateful for your involvement in this project and incredible. Linton and I just want to say thank you to you, because you've brought so much to this project, and so many amazing people have come through you. And we really want to honor you for that and say thank you, John. That's very special of you, and we love your involvement in this project and your support of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
I'm far more grateful to you and Linton than you could ever be grateful to me.
Thank you, John. So guys, just to end off, if you want to support the project, you can go to angel.com/David. There's a lot of information there. We've got a technical problem right now, so just go and look at the information. If you actually want to invest, you might have to revisit the site in a couple of hours. But really, thank you for your time today, and thank you for your prayers and support. We really appreciate it. And we're going to end off by just showing the demo again and a bit of a snippet at the end. But John and Linton, thank you. John, enjoy the snow, and we'll talk before Christmas. But I'm glad it looks like you'll have a white Christmas there.
Fantastic. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Linton.
Thanks, guys. Cheers, Linton.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Look into my eyes. Do you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel. Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay then, one more time. Tali, no! I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa! No, not that way. Come on. Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait. Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tali! Tali, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. go. I'm almost okay. Oh! Tali, stop! No! Oh, that doesn't help. That does. Stop. Thank you. Yena haleni nafshi yeshobeh yancheni b'mgalet tzedek leman shemo.
What you have just watched is a concept short or a musical animated feature film on the story of David, and our vision is to tell it in the same quality as movies like Tangled and Frozen. This is more than a movie. This is a movement to join people from all over the world to try and make the world's most watched animated theatrical release. You can show your interest in investing by going to angel.com/David. Growing up in the wild of Africa was the most incredible experience, and it was there that I bumped into the most amazing character of God and fell in love with him. At the same time, I was reading David's story, and it just really struck me. On one particular canoe trip on the Zambezi River, where you could canoe for days and not see a human being, I was reading the scriptures and I read, "I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart." And I thought how amazing it would be to do a film that would give people all over the world a glimpse into God's heart. We grew up on a farm that had no electricity. I only saw my first film when I was 14 years old, and it was such an electric experience. I was blown away by the power of film and the power of story to connect with people and move people. And from that day, I became passionate to tell a story on the life of David. The question is, can a group of farmers from Africa make a global hit that's going to reach the world? This is in and of itself an incredible David versus Goliath story.
There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And in order to tell a story as big as David, we need people from all around the world to come together.
Over the last 20 years, Jackie and I have just been blown away by how God has miraculously drawn talent to us. Now we have the most awesome, high-quality team.
Like Nathan Stanton, who spent 22 years at Pixar, Jonas Myron, a Grammy Award-winning musician, Borja Montoya, a Disney animation alumni, other talent from massive films like Big Hero 6, Tangled, Finding Nemo, Zootopia, Moana, Prince of Egypt, and many more.
Our first breakout hit is Jungle Beat, an incredible and beautiful show. On our YouTube channel, we get over 2 billion views a year. We've got 7 million subscribers. We also recently released our first animated feature film called Jungle Beat the Movie. And incredibly, it was on Netflix's top 10 for over 2 weeks, both live action and animated feature films in the US. We are also doing a theatrical release of Jungle Beat the Movie in China later this year, and are in production of Jungle Beat the Movie 2. What really excites me is if you take Jungle Beat the Movie, we produced that for $5 million. And I'd really encourage you to go and watch it on Netflix to see the quality of movie we produce for that price. And just imagine the quality of movie we could produce on David with the proper budget. With David, we considered the route of engaging with Hollywood, and there is significant interest down that route. But we really felt that from a creative point of view, we need to stay the head and not the tail of this project. And it's a slingshot, like David went with a slingshot to fight Goliath. We really believe that the strategy needs to be outside the Hollywood system for it to work. In this vein, we are thrilled to be working with Angel Studios for distribution. Angel Studios did the TV series The Chosen, which has become the world's biggest TV series on the life of Jesus Christ. The Chosen has generated hundreds of millions of views and tens of millions of dollars. We've already got $19 million of investments and need another $35 million to complete this project. We need your help to bring God's heart to the world through the story of David. Go to angel.com/David to show your support for this project now. And let's join together to try and make the world's most watched animated theatrical release.